A Mutant Manifesto, Episode 2. Evolving Online Community in Old School Runescape.
Recording in progress.
There's a specter haunting this meeting.
Yeah, Spectre of Zoom is real.
Yeah.
So can we just give some introductions? I guess welcome to A Mutant Manifesto, Episode 2. My name is Jackie. I'm joined by Carson as usual.
Hey.
And then I've got two RuneScapers on the damn call. Would you two mind introducing yourselves to our wonderful mutant audience?
Sure. My name is Maddie. In game, I go by Cult Girl 666. It's a black metal reference. Don't ask about it.
And hello. I'm gonna go by Danny today. I'm not ready to blend my IRL and game worlds yet, but I also play RuneScape.
Yeah.
Okay, hell yeah. You know, it's a pretty big topic, right? I guess the main question really is, so you were already getting into it, but what exactly is old school RuneScape, and how does it, differ from different previous iterations of RuneScape?
So yeah, I could take that. So old school RuneScape is exactly how it sounds. So there was actually technically there was classic RuneScape Classic, which you cannot play anymore. But that was like the first couple years that RuneScape existed. It was a 2D version of the game. But then there was what was kind of known as RuneScape 2, which was the 3D RuneScape that lasted for a while until something very controversial in the RuneScape community happened. Well, first of all, there was a weird period where Jack didn't know what they were doing. They took out like PvP, they took out free trade, but eventually the straw that broke the camel's back that a lot of people kind of left the game for was a thing called the evolution of combat, where this combat system that everyone was used to changed into something with like a skills bar, and it was very complicated and just kind of completely changed the game. And people were very unhappy with it. The aesthetics of the game changed, and people did left. And so Jagex realized, well, if we want to get some of those players back, we need to find a way to bring the old game back. And so they found a backup copy of the game from 2007. That's why you see people refer to sometimes as 2007 Scape, and they basically just restarted the game. Now, the version that they were working on still exists as RuneScape 3. I have never logged in a second of it, but there is two RuneScapes. And both of those RuneScapes get updates. Now there are two alternate RuneScape timelines that are kind of connected, but they are their own separate entity. And we play the old school RuneScape, RuneScape 2, old school RuneScape.
You know what's crazy is back in the day I attended like marches of hundreds of players marching through like the RuneScape world, rioting when I was like 11 or 12 years old as people were chanting things. And it was a moment of radicalization. I mean, it was pretty interesting, actually.
I learned how to organize on RuneScape.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the the area that we're going in eventually in this episode. But wait, so Carson, what were people marching for?
Yeah, exactly what Maddie was just talking about. The huge thing, they took away what was called the wilderness. So Jagex is like the company, I guess, that makes RuneScape or hosts it. Yeah, and they took away what's called the wilderness, which was like the PvP, like the areas you could actually fight each other and kill other players, whatever, take their stuff. And that was the main thing that I was into as a young gangster player, was like scamming people, luring people, killing people. And so they took that away, and then it kind of spiraled into this thing that was like And it was really interesting. People would like, you know, accounts that they had for a couple years or even longer, like that they spent so much time like accruing skills and items and stuff and money, and people were just dropping everything, like dropping all of their things just like in the game. And it was like people, I don't know, it was pretty chaotic. And when I remember we were marching for a lot of this is going to be, you know, really like specific references, but we were marching from like Varrock to Falador, and like people were all like spamming like no wildy, no play, like just like, yeah, no wilderness. I can't remember what else people were saying. It was a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, I was pissed. This was like a huge part of my life, and I was like, we were losing something that was I don't know, a huge part of the game and a huge part of like, yeah, my life at the time.
An MMO without a legitimate like competitive like player versus player component seems very lacking, and I think people felt that.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting because MMOs are a huge deal in general, and I feel like around the same era was the big boom in MMOs. We saw World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, you know, even like Half-Life, and then we saw RuneScape. Those were sort of the big MMOs that we saw. But there was a boom in the early 2000s that sort of like tapered off at some point, I believe. But we're seeing a resurgence currently in sort of a nostalgic recapitulation of those MMOs, and other MMOs are coming up that are trying to sort of emulate what they had, but unsuccessfully so. It's kind of something that came and went in a certain way. But I'm curious. So, Carson, what age were you when you were protesting through the streets of whatever these places were?
Yeah, that I think that must have been. I think I was 12, and that was probably in 2000. Yeah, I mean, it must have been in 2007. It's my guess, or
Right.
maybe 2008. Sorry, I might have been 12, maybe 13. Um,
So then, like Danny and Maddie, you were similar ages,
Let's
or
see.
did you play back in the day?
Yeah, so I actually was shown the game. I played the OG RuneScape Classic when I was shown it in 3rd grade. Whatever age that was, I was like 10. And then I played the game up until like 2006. I kind of quit then, and then I somehow randomly rediscovered the game like 3 years ago and have been obsessed ever since.
Yeah, and somewhat similar. I think I just missed the classic window, but I started probably around like early 2005 and then
Yeah.
played for a year and a half. Time at that age though for me is so strange, and
Yeah.
it feels like both a blip and also another life.
So I'm curious to get into that a little bit more. How did y'all find out about RuneScape originally, like back in the day? And do you have any memories that you'd like to share? Like, what were your friends like? What was your community like in RuneScape at the time when you first adopted it? Was it people that you knew in real life? Did you find out about it some other way?
I think that's why I quit, because I didn't really have a community. I discovered the game because a couple kids in my school played it, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. You those people on the screen are real players." The idea of an MMO was new to me, and like, that's insane that you could play this game online. I thought that was the coolest thing. My little kid brain blew up. But after a while, the thrill kind of left when I didn't have like a reason to play because I didn't have people to play it with.
Yeah, similar to me. I must have found it on like Miniclip or Addicting
Yeah,
Games. I think it was hosted there at one point. I just remember playing in the browser. That's about it.
yeah.
But you know, probably through there, and then also didn't have like a ton of friends. Maybe like my one or two in real life that also would play sometimes. But then when they stopped, I kind of stopped as well.
This is
Interesting.
before Discord and really Reddit took off. So it was like hard to find like groups to play games with.
Yeah, so for me, it took over my school. Like everybody I knew played this game. We heard about it, like my brothers and I, from other friends that were like much nerdier than we were, but we all kind of like were into reading and fantasy stuff and like, you know, the usual nerd shit. So they showed us, and then they were really into like I think another game called like Maple Story then.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I had also at the time my family had one desktop computer that was not even in our house. It was in the building adjacent to our house that was part of like a family business that we would go out and we would play, but there was no heat. There's no heat out in this building, so we'd sit and you'd like, you know, from the northeast, and it's cold, and we would like play RuneScape in like a frigid office basically. And yeah, but like everybody I knew played. I think that was like why I was so into it was we would all like talk about it at school nonstop. And I started playing in fifth grade, and that was basically the same time. And everybody I knew, it was like, you know, I lived in a small town, so it was everybody I knew that played was between the ages of like 7 and like 15. So I didn't know any like adults on the game, so it was like all kids. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of memories of it. It's funny to get together with people, and we still like talk about it now. When we were younger, like it's a big part of our childhood. Like a funny one maybe to share is that like there's the free to play version. That's how we all started, and then you can get a membership. And at the time, like it was like $5 a month if you paid by credit card, but my parents were like, no, what is this, like what the hell, you're not using our credit card to like do this. So I had to do the by the phone membership, so you like dialed a number. And but my dad made us take a blood oath that we were only allowed to play this game an hour a day. And we had to sign like a contract and prick our finger and like do this whole, I don't know, yeah, take a blood oath to not have this computer game like take over our lives. So
One of the things I find fascinating right now is that the people who play the game now still today are, you know, about the same age as all of us, you know, late 20s, early 30s, who played it at the same time then. And the game has grown up and become more difficult. New updates, new PVM is more challenging, more sophisticated. But if you like play like some of the earliest parts of the game, it feels really childish and kind of hokey, and then it gets darker and darker and more of a serious tone as you progress. It's kind of jarring, but it's just like it's cool seeing like this game grow up with you.
Yeah, big agree.
That's very interesting to me. Yeah, I definitely want to trace it out and kind of get there. I want to get gradually, kind of temporally arrive at this current moment, which
Yeah.
is this current iteration of RuneScape,
Mhm.
of old school RuneScape. But so like at the time, like
Bleep.
sorry, at the time, like Danny and Maddie, were you, and also Carson, did y'all move on to different games when RuneScape fell away? And what were those games? Like, would you consider yourselves gamers? Because another thing I wanted to mention is that, just like Carson said, it wasn't a complete obsession in my school, but I remember my sister and her friends who were like cool girls who like did not game. I remember them playing RuneScape and like teaching me how to like do things on Tutorial Island and stuff when I was like, you know, 6 or whatever the fuck. I don't even know. Like, I guess more older than that, but I remember it being a phenomenon that transcended traditional gaming lines. And I don't know if you, but so you know, but of course I then was also got really into like Pokemon and like World of Warcraft and StarCraft and things like that. I'm wondering about the rest of y'all. Like, what sort of flowed from RuneScape, if anything.
That's very interesting because when I stopped playing RuneScape, it was around the 360 era. And so I picked up that, got really into like Halo and Gears of War and all of those games. That was like middle school and high school for me. But part of in my mind, I thought, oh, I better grow up now. And I like took a period of time where I like got out of gaming in general. And then I discovered RuneScape. And then all of a sudden I'm building a gaming PC and I'm back into not just RuneScape, but playing all kinds of games, Baldur's Gate 3, all of that stuff. So it's a huge part of my life again over these past few years.
Can I ask before we move on? Do you remember like when that era of quote unquote growing up was, and your rejection of gaming? What sort of inspired that at the time?
Honestly, it was family pressure, from a very conservative traditional family. It was like you gotta, be such and such to be a, grow up. And then I realized like that's bullshit. But I'm sorry, can I cuss in this podcast?
Of course, of course.
But yeah, so that would have been high school, college. So I would say I did not really play video games at all from like age 18 to like 27. There was a good 9-year period. And then I'm like making up for lost time.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about Baldur's Gate on a separate episode too. I mean, there's some fun themes there, especially when it comes to hybridity and mutation. But yeah, anyone else? So like everyone else, like what has your gaming journey been on?
Good Lord.
Been like?
Well, my father, he was a game maker for a long time, and so I would get games that he was a part of from a very young age. So gaming has just been like a fabric of my life pretty much. And in some ways RuneScape was kind of a small part of it, actually. Before that, I was pretty engaged in other online communities like Club Penguin, Gaiaonline, little
Yo, guy.
role-playing
Oh,
forum.
shout out. We gotta do a tangent on that in a second. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, geez, but I had an N64 as a kid, and those basically like the N64, PlayStation 2, Xbox 360 era is like when my nostalgia kind of ends. Like
Yeah.
it's the computer through those devices that I feel a certain affinity for, and everything else is like modern and it's fun, but I don't remember it as fondly as those.
Any Toontown enjoyers in the chat?
Yes, I forgot about Toontown. And that is another thing that's gotten rebooted.
It has. I have not played.
Yeah.
I have not played the remake, but I've been tempted to.
Yeah,
I guess not the remake, but like the private server.
Right.
Toontown is that freaking just like random different characters from different things, right?
No, it's like your cartoon characters taking down like the man and like corporate bosses, throwing pies at their face. It's like combat.
Oh.
But ironically, it was made by Disney.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
you are like Goofy. You are the type of thing that Goofy is. All your characters are like that, or like Bugs, or your characters in that like world, the Mickey Mouse, the Goofy world.
So you're like anthropomorphic animals,
dogs and
yes,
rabbits.
It's really interesting because like Jack Halberstam is like a theorist that I'm really into, and I don't know if you guys are you laughing because you were familiar, or I don't know, but like okay, gotcha. He does a lot of like analyses, like critical analyses of like Pixar movies. Like for example, Chicken Run is a big one that he fixates on as like a site of like feminist, like eco-feminist resistance against like capitalism. Because think about it. These chickens are like farmed in this like factory setting where their whole life is like conditioned around providing not only free labor but their livelihoods themselves to like a big consumptive force, and they find a way through like affirming one another to like break free of this cage, but yet it's formed by Pixar. I mean, it's not like a innocent creator of the top of the media itself. but I feel like that's sort of the situation epistemologically that many of us find ourselves in. Our realities themselves are sponsored by things that we can find resistance to within the creations that we live in, you know. But anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there.
Chicken Run scared the hell out of me when I saw it in theaters as a kid.
Yeah,
The head chopping scene is brutal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was that should not have been marketed to kids.
Yeah.
That was a horror film.
It's like a horror movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't that like that they couldn't fly? Like, is that part of that they were like trying to learn how to fly because they couldn't escape? Is that the same movie?
It sounds
I'm
like
thinking maybe Wallace and Gromit. I don't know. I'm like,
It is like Wallace adjacent. It might be the same people.
Is it also claymation?
It is
I think it was
claymation.
claymation.
Yeah. Okay.
Wallace and Gromit was a similarly disturbing, you know, in similar. I guess maybe claymation itself is kind of disturbing for some reason.
Well, it's always changing shape.
That's so true.
But yeah, spoiler alert for Chicken Run. If I remember correctly, yes, they couldn't fly, but also they built like a flying contraption as part of their.
Oh yeah, they built
Yes.
like they got
Oh my
shot out
God.
almost like a plane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cyborg manifesto core, because it's like our wings have been clipped by the world we live in, but within that system we can jerry-rig devices beyond our original capacity.
This is the best podcast that's ever podcasted.
Speaking of themes like this, Maddie,
Sure.
you also go by Beaver Mosh, and you do metal reviews.
Yeah, that is another side of me. My main hobbies are one, gaming, but also you listening cannot see, but my walls are covered in metal posters and stuff. I review metal albums, I interview metal bands, I talk about underground metal music on YouTube, and have a small following. Yeah, it's called Beaver Mosh. It's not very connected to this at all, but yeah, I do that.
Patreon.com/BeaverMosh.
That is true.
Correct.
That is true. Yes.
Now, okay. I did happen to peruse, you know, I was like YouTubing, I was searching, I was Googling, I was doing some research, and I found a video that was the old school RuneScape bosses ranked from least to most metal.
Correct.
By Beaver Mosh.
Yes, I did make that.
I was wondering if you would mind sharing the least and most metal bosses with us here.
Sure. If I'm going by memory, the least metal boss was the deranged archaeologist, and the most metal boss was the giant mole.
So, can we talk about the deranged archaeologist?
Yes.
Who is this character? What is it like to face them? And do you know any of their lore?
So that is one of the things. The deranged archaeologist has no lore. Nobody knows who this guy is, where he's at. What's very bizarre about the deranged archaeologist is he is an exact clone of the crazy archaeologist. They decided to put the deranged. They made this new area of RuneScape called Fossil Island, and they decided they needed a boss in this area, and they literally just made a carbon copy of the crazy archaeologist and just put him randomly on Fossil Island, and he has no big drops. There's no reason to fight this guy. It's just very random and bizarre that he even exists, and he's not a real boss. That's why I put him at the bottom.
Danny, do you have any thoughts about this character or Carson? Have you faced him?
Yeah, I mean, just for the combat achievements, but I think that's all anyone ever does.
Yeah.
There's not much to do there.
So there's really no reason for this person to exist. And
Correct.
He's just a copy of something. He's just a clone.
Yeah,
Exactly. Literally the same mechanics. Just
No reason to exist. No unique loot. You don't get anything from defeating this motherfucker. You just exist to exist. It's just to
Other-
fill space.
Other than what Danny said, there's a thing, these things you can get that like there are rewards called combat achievements. There's one combat achievement for the Drained Archaeologist. You kill the guy 25 times, you're done.
You have to kill him 25 fucking... Wait, how long does that
And that
take?
takes like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Real
Okay.
quick.
Just like he just keeps spawning and just keep killing him?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I feel
It's a
like
good
some of
life.
this some of this gets into what Maddie I like what Maddie said earlier about like the hokiness, like the childlikeness of like I feel like this was the perfect game because like there were and I you know there's so much to explore that in the dialogue and the characters and everything,
Right.
like the stories and the quests are like if you're actually just going through like la di da di da, like this is just for fun and you're not trying to like complete everything quickly and like I don't know if you're not doing it for like a purpose, like the game is really funny. Like there's a lot of really funny, like weird little wacky things. And like I feel like at the time when like Xbox 360 and like Xbox Live and stuff was getting to be huge and like everybody I know that started playing those things when I was like like 10 11 where I was like talking to like people that are just like saying slurs the whole time and they're just like warfare games. I don't know, the like juxtaposition of that with like how dorky RuneScape was with like the actual like mechanics and like the graphics that it was like you're like fighting somebody but it's like you're like swinging some kind of like weird object and like a little like number shows up but there I don't know, like I think there's something there about all that, like the shift from like that sort of like nostalgic, more innocent feeling childhood internet stuff to like I don't know, like a more violent internet space. I don't know if that's just a product of like growing up and then being like I don't know, you just like see more on the internet or the like actual content on the internet changing. I just real quick, I have a funny story just about because there's the giant mole. The first time I ever got scammed in this game, basically, and it was heartbreaking. And I was like 10 years old, and this is how I got into like the thug life, I guess, in RuneScape. Was I got scammed first, and somebody was like, you know, I think at the time my name was some sort of a reference to like marshmallows. I don't know why I came up with it, but it was called like Mallow Schmell when I was like in 5th grade. And so, innocent little Mallow Schmell. Some guy was like, "Hey, you want to see like a cool training spot?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, you're gonna need to like," and this is back in the day when pre-Grand Exchange, which the Grand Exchange is actually a really interesting thing to talk about. It's like it's almost like this centralized like almost like an internet like marketplace, I would say, on RuneScape. Like prior to that, you had to like if you wanted to trade with people, you had to do it directly, like person to person. So people would say they would do this thing where they'd say bank sale, like you'd sit in a bank and you'd be selling items basically, and I think I was having a bank sale, so I had a lot of items in my inventory. And this guy, he sniffed it out. He was like, "Oh, this like total noob." Like, he's like, "I'll show you this training spot." He's like, "Just come with me." And then he like trades me like a shovel and a tinder box and a candle. And he's like brings me to this park in Falador, if people know it. And he's like, "Yeah, you got to dig in this spot." And he's like, "Then when we're down there, you're gonna have to light a candle because it's like it's dark and you can't see." And so you go down into this cave basically that I'd never known about, that because you dig on this like specific spot in this garden. And so I'm following this person deep in these cave tunnels, and I should have just known like this is a bad idea, but I was just like having a good time. And then you approach basically this massive thing called like giant mole, I'm pretty sure.
Giant mole.
It's like level like like 500 something. At this point in the game, I'd never seen anything over like level, like, I don't know, 140 or something. Like, and this person was so convincing. They were like, you gotta, like she'll like see your light if you like don't like blow out your candle. So you gotta, like, when you're passing her, like, blow out the candle. So I like extinguished this light, and all of a sudden I started like getting basically like these like damage. I'm taking random damage, just like one,
Yeah.
like popping up, and I start freaking out. I'm like, I have all of my stuff in my inventory. Like, I didn't know what to do. I had no food, and I'm sitting there as things are attacking me, and I try and type like help. Like, what do I do? and the person just types ha ha ha, and what came up in like my chat box or whatever was like, you feel like hundreds of tiny insects crawling all over you. And so I was I was eaten alive. I didn't think I was actually going to die. Like, at that point I was like, I don't know if I'd ever really succumbed to anything in that game in a big way. And it was like, like afterwards, I'm a little, ashamed to admit, but I cried. I was like, I'm gonna quit. I just like lost all my things.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, then I turned to like a hardcore life in the game so I could make a living and survive.
That must have been a part of the game where a time in the game where when you died, all of your stuff was just on the ground. So that person like probably picked it up afterwards.
You would just that was the whole point, they were luring me into this weird like specific scam where then I just died and they just got all of my things.
Incredible.
And at that point I even like, by the time I like teleported back to Falador, tried to run and like find a shovel in my bank and then get back to the place where, and I got back and I just found my own bones, and it was tragic.
So they've changed the death mechanics since then because of things like that. So now you basically, when you die, you have a certain amount of time to get to your gravestone, and you have to pay death, like the Grim Reaper, a fee to get your stuff back. It's a lot better system in my opinion. The reason the Grand Exchange exists now is it was a way for them to combat those type of scams too. Like, it was like harder to like sell stuff through free trade. You had to sell it through this more like authorized market. But yes.
So okay. This touches on some themes about like, safety and the internet, and also this nostalgic quality that I would like to flesh out more. But before we do, is there like in-game lore for the bosses? Like, does the giant mole have like a storyline?
A lot of them do, but from what I can tell, the giant mole is just a giant mole in Falador Park. I don't know. The giant mole is a very old boss, and it's like one of the more silly bosses in the game. I think the giant mole, the Calphite Queen, and the King Black Dragon are like the first three like bosses in RuneScape. These are like old bosses.
And I think maybe if there's any lore about the giant mole, because you sell its like claws and parts to the gardener, that the gardener's like pissed off that there's this mole, wrecking havoc under their garden. It's like, please go slaughter this beast.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a theme of all fantasy gaming, is that like anything that falls at all with, pretty much anything is bound to just completely kill as many as you can and loot whatever you can from them and take them and sell them. Yeah. So I mean, like, that's a pretty common, through line throughout all fantasy gaming and all MMOs, is that you're essentially affecting a colonialist regime on the rest of the world. But I mean, that's kind of neither here nor there. I mean, it's kind of here and there. But like, so the giant mole is metal just simply because it's a fucking giant mole. It's like, but what's this about being eaten alive by insects? What's this now?
That was it.
That was the first time I heard that. I always knew you needed a light source to fight the giant mole. I've just never been in the caves without a light source, so I didn't know what happened if you your light went out.
Yeah, if you extinguish whatever light source you have, it's just like every half second, like you take like 1 damage, and you're running around. Also, the whole screen darkens. You can't really see. Like, you can get some sort of. So I was actually like,
it's actually pretty horrifying.
It was horrifying because it was
especially
like,
for like a 10-year-old.
I'm in here, like, and also that someone is following you, laughing.
Ooh.
as I was dying.
Well, and that's what I was going to transition into talking about. Yeah, so like scams and PvP and trickery are a component of all online spaces, but RuneScape, it definitely was part of the original identity of that. Did you have any other experiences like this that any of y'all would be comfortable sharing? And also, like, how does it compare to the present day state of the game?
Yeah, first time I got scammed. Hi, my name's Danny. I've been scammed. I pulled the lever to in Edgeville that goes straight into Deep Wildy because someone said, "Oh, we're having a party," and like me and three other people very willingly and excitedly went. We were all slaughtered because didn't know that that was a two-way lever. You can go back, but or maybe I got teleblocked. Who knows? But either way, just absolutely murdered on that tiny island in the Wildy.
Wait, can you expand on what that, like, how that scam
Yeah.
worked?
Yeah, so one of the like close to the starter area towns called Edgeville. Um, there's a bank there, you know. I think maybe people were trading there as well. I don't know what I was doing over there as a child, but oh no, I think it was because someone walked me over there from Varick, saying like, "Oh, there's this really cool thing," you know. And at the time, as we talked about earlier, we didn't really have these communities as kids online yet. So you're just like, cool, a friend, you know, I'm talking to a real person online in the world and they want to hang out with me. How sick. Little did you know, you walk over to this room with the very unassuming lever that, you know, just looks like a lever. You don't know what it's going to do. And they say, yeah, pull this and it will take you to the party room of sorts. Um, so we did one by one, pulled that little lever, and then immediately, like the wilderness, which I knew of the wilderness at this point, it gets progressively more dangerous the further you go in because it's like there's this level scaling system. So you start out at level 3 in the game, combat wise. Max level is 126. In the wilderness, you can only fight people within a certain distance of your level based on the depth of the wilderness. So like level 10 wilderness, you can, if you're level 20, you can fight people that are 10 and 30 that are, you know, 10 levels above and below you. So I knew of the wilderness. I pull the lever and I see, you know, on the screen, like, hey, you're in the wilderness. Not only that, but you're in like level 56 wilderness or something, um, which is basically like a free for all at that point. Almost everybody can kill you. Um, so yeah, panic immediately set in as I'm getting the hit splats registering on my player character, and you know, that was that.
So how old were you at this point?
Oh Lord, I must have been 10, 9, 11.
And did you have like a visceral response to this?
Oh yeah, it was horrible. I mean, it felt like betrayal, you know, because it went from like an excited sense of optimism to just sheer like what a fool I was and how dare you. But I
Yeah.
didn't have like the revenge story that Carson went on
Yeah.
becoming a PKer. I was just like, I
I'm
will
kind of
never
curious
touch.
about this revenge story. I think maybe
Yeah.
we'll try to circle back to that at some point for sure. No, but so instead of that, you were just like, oh man, I guess I can't really trust trust
Yeah,
people.
pretty much. Yeah, you know, I became steel hardened and shut off my emotions to preserve myself. I also never went to the wilderness ever again after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a scary fucking place.
I think there's maybe just one thing that to touch on that's interesting about this is like, I, I guess it's on like a material level of like, you know, the game is like you create wealth through like time spent doing things
Yeah.
like extractive things or like trading as like a merchant. And so like to lose your items or to lose your money or something is like all this time that I spent working on this like is like down the tubes. So I think it like has real world consequences, and also like I think we should get it, and we'll probably start talking about it at some point. But I'm always interested in this interplay between like the actual game and the real world, and like because even when I was like 11 or so, my older brother was also like he actually taught me a lot of this stuff, like scamming wise, because he was making real money in real life by selling gold.
Yeah, it's a thing.
But this was like this was before like anybody was talking about like gold farming or like, and now it's like, you know, it's so crazy. There's like but yeah, like back then, and I remember my brother must have been like 14, and he like traded in-game money, gold, for like it was like a Nintendo DS or something when they like first came out. Like someone gave him it, and my parents were pissed. They were like, that you can't do that. Like that's not okay. And it was this hilarious divide. Well, it's funny now, like, but my brother was like losing it. He was like, you don't understand. Like, I've spent so much time like making all that money in the game. And it's like it functions as a real currency in real life of like you trade and he made like hundreds of dollars off this as like a 14-year-old. And so like when you get scammed and you lose your stuff, it's like it has like some real world like impacts in some way. I don't want to like overblow it as like it's like this huge you're accruing like this massive loss on your life or something, but when you're a kid, it definitely you know, it's opens your eyes to how callous and cold some of the free market whatever competition type shit can be.
I mean, that definitely brings up a couple of interesting things about value right away. I mean, one of them is that I think with all these MMOs and with any game that's oriented around farming, there is an interesting situation where chicken and egg situation where it's like where does the pleasure lie? Is the pleasure in the actual gameplay itself, or is it in amassing resources? And or is it simply in just spending your time? Like, because just spending your time doing something has a certain, and like slowly seeing a number go up, it has a certain pleasure principle to it.
I would add just like straight up gambling. I mean, a lot of it is just like so based on gambling. Like when I found out that like when you're talking about like killing bosses or something like that in like monsters in the game or something that drop items, that it's based on like a random rolling system, that it is just like you're just, I don't know, like you're engaging in like some sort of activity of killing this thing, like PVMing they call it, right? Yeah. Like but a huge part of it is just the sheer like hit from like, oh my god, I just got this item that's like extremely rare that costs like a ton of money.
So Maddie and Danny, do you have any insights about like the in-game economies and how they've run either like maybe in the past versus how they operate today?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. Yeah, people like what Carson said. People will farm these bosses for these rare drops that are worth so much money. One of the most expensive items in the game is a twisted bow, which is a very rare drop from a raid called Chambers of Zarek, which runs for like I think like 1.5 billion GP, which is an astronomically high amount of gold. Um, but it's funny. There are a couple YouTubers that I'll watch occasionally that are like legitimately RuneScape economists who will who will follow the fall and drop in prices of items, explain why these certain items are falling or dropping, and will give investment advice. Certain updates in the game, like there might be a new Slayer monster will be weak to a certain type of weapon. All of a sudden, a weapon that was useless in the game for like 2 years all of a sudden becomes this hot commodity and people go buy it and the demand goes up. It's very interesting how it works in a video game.
Yeah, and you know that like level and detail of economics, applying capitalist theory to video game is such a far cry in some ways, but in other ways not, to the early days when I guess this kind of like proto-capital market system where you just walk to the market in the town and then people are yelling like, I'm selling this lobsters for 500
Yes.
500 GP.
This is a classic element of early RuneScape for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm buying a girlfriend for 5 GP. You know,
Yes,
the
right.
classic little things. And in some ways, like, it is nice. The Grand Exchange now is super convenient, but I do miss that, like, you had to go to the spot, hope that someone was there, and you're just like standing and merchanting, you know.
So can we zoom in really quickly on the Grand Exchange? I don't really know what this is, and what is the function of this? What was in the place of it beforehand?
So beforehand was what Danny described. You go to a place on the map, like very popular places were like Falador Square, some of the banks in Borak, where people will just be like typing, selling lobbies for so much. You know, you amass as well, or you go to the forums and sell that way. The Grand Exchange is this new addition. Well, not new now, but it was new at the time. It's just like it's this place. It's like meant to look like a stock exchange, like RuneScape Wall Street. And you go there, and there are these tellers, and you click on them, and you can place items into the Grand Exchange and put a price there that you want to sell it for, or you could type in an item you want and put an offer in. And over time, if you find a buyer that is looking for that item that offers at the price you want, you will sell it, or vice versa, you will buy it. It's like a stock exchange in RuneScape, essentially.
Yeah, or like the auction house in World of Warcraft.
Exactly.
It seems like it's the same thing as that. Gotcha. So it's essentially just a sanctioned, okay, got it, exchange route. Do you think that there was something? Okay, be honest. Do the three of you think that something was lost in the transition from the more anarchic style of trade to the like grand exchange style, or do you think it's all positive?
Yes and no. I mean, I think the needs of the player base is just different now. When we were kids, like, I didn't mind going. That was just how it was, and it was cool and fun. And I think if I did actually have to do it the old way now, I would come to dislike it in some ways. Because of how easy it is to just like I don't have as much time, it feels like. And like I feel the weight of my time nowadays, which is part of why I'm always chasing this nostalgia, but we'll get in that at some point, I guess. But like, you know, I got shit to do and I can't just stand in the bank and spam, selling this thing until someone hopefully needs the one thing I'm selling. Just like put it in and move on. But yeah, sure. I'm definitely like still in some ways nostalgic for that earlier time.
There is a social aspect that was lost upon the Grand Exchange become a thing. You don't just like walk into like a city in the map and just see a lot of players just like gathered for just to be gathered. But I do think it's better, and I do not want to go back to the old way because I I don't think standing in a bank and yelling selling lobbies for 500 GP is the game, right? The game is getting XP, doing these tasks, fighting bosses, right? By like simplifying the actual like selling and buying aspect of the game into kind of this automated system, it creates more time for that, as Danny was saying. Also, the main function of the Grand Exchange is to combat scammers. Like you can't scam on the Grand Exchange because it's done through the computer.
Right.
Yeah.
Because yeah, when you would trade back in the day, you literally open a trade window and you put up something and they put up something and you both have to click accept. And the scam therein is like, you can swap things out last second, maybe they don't notice, or you put something in that like looks like it's overflated in value. But then when you trade, you realize you just got garbage. So yeah, that's how the scam mechanic worked.
Right. It's like having it's sort of like a, anarchist or a what do you call it? A fucking, why am I so stupid? The fucking, like like the right anarchist, what do you call it? Like a libertarian approach to
Oh
economy.
yeah.
Versus
Anarcho-capitalist.
yeah, It's like anarcho-capitalism versus like liberal, like, or I guess, any other sort of regulated economy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is sort of an evolution that we've seen to some extent, as far as I can understand it, just in the way that this game is played. If we want to like apply real world, policy to in-game.
So if we want to apply
mechanics.
real world like political theory to RuneScape, RuneScape technically by the Marxist definition is not capitalism, it's a true market economy. Nobody owns the means of production, right? Nobody owns like the land that you fish in. Anyone can fish at that land and then sell the fish they fish to another player. So it's a
and
little
there's also
different.
unlimited fish, correct?
That's correct, yes.
No, yeah, I don't know if you want to keep going.
Yeah. That's wanted to like add that.
No,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's a great point.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but I mean, it is interesting when it comes to time spent. That is an interesting element of this. Really quickly, before we kind of get deeper into this sort of like political ramifications, has anyone experienced either buying or performing the role of a GF or a essentially like a relationship kind of like proto sex worker on RuneScape, because that was a huge component of this.
That's what I was gonna say. That was one of the scams, was to basically go to the gender doctor in Falador, and then you could, actually you could just make a new account too, whatever, and then I would do this as like a like a 10-year-old. I would basically bait people and create this whole thing of, I'm a girl in real life and like I can be your girlfriend. You just have to pay me a certain amount of like gifts, or not, it wasn't that straightforward, but it was like, don't you want to give
you were
me
like a
like
virtual sugar baby.
Yeah, but I mean, it was this really weird dynamic of like, and I do remember being asked like, like weird personal questions that I think I knew enough at the time to like not answer and just be like really vague. But I'm still trying to keep in mind that like we were literal children doing this, like, and it worked all right, but it wasn't as good. Like, I don't know, you didn't like make as much money, but like, yeah, you were a sugar baby and kind of like, like a comfort, whatever, like, proto sex worker.
You're like listening to people's like what's going on with you, like, oh hey, like, and you'd go to certain places, you'd probably like take off a shirt in game or whatever at some point.
I don't know. Not
advanced strategies.
Yeah, but it's weird because I did actually like, I knew only a couple girls like in real life that played, and it was also like a dynamic of, oh, like this person like plays this game, and like there's this interplay between you like flirting as characters in the game, like, and this is like right after AOL, like AIM, like instant messenger, and I feel like it kind of like bled into that, where like some people just, it became kind of like a chat room kind of thing where people didn't really like play the game, they just like make an account just to like talk to other people, and they just do random stuff around. Like, I knew people that would just only like like they didn't explore the game at all, they just like went and would kill cows and collect like cow hides, and it's just like such a basic weird little thing, or just fish endlessly and just like talk to people.
Yeah, it was a social forum before, I think that was like a really prominent aspect of what RuneScape's draw was to a lot of people. And AIM was the same thing. I remember having some very serious relationships that were built on AIM. But also, Gaiaonline is another great example of this. Penguin, or whatever what is it?
Club Penguin.
Yeah, is also another one of these. There's a lot of different ones of these. But I think these online communities that formed, Tumblr is another example.
Oh yeah.
Like MySpace, all these different communities that formed at the sort of hest of internet. Like, as we were all, it's funny because we are exactly the age where it's like it happened to be when we were coming into social awareness, was also when these internet platforms were becoming available to people. So
Mhm.
we were the first ones we were the pioneers of this shit. But but no, I mean it allows for a lot of contemplation and slipperiness when it comes to things like identity, when it comes to things like safety. You know, what does it mean to be safe with another person? What does it mean to trust somebody? These are big themes that get unpacked when you come into contact with such a huge range of individuals that have the ability to shapeshift. You know. Um, but yeah, I mean, okay. So this kind of brings me to okay. So we have all these nostalgic connections to RuneScape.
Mhm.
I'm curious about when did you most recently get back into it, and like, what is your relationship with old school RuneScape like currently?
So I found the game because a I don't even know how it got on my algorithm, but there's a YouTuber named Jimmy, J1MMY, and he made this series where he played all of the RuneScape quests in order, and I thought it was so fun and like, wow, I remember doing those quests as a kid. And I was just like, what if this game still exists? What if I just played it and I made an account? And then all of a sudden I just happened to be working I don't know if I'm getting too ahead of this, but like I uh I was working a subreddit called Trans Gamers, and because of course there's a subreddit for everything, and there was a post in it by someone advertising the Communist Party of Gielinor. It was like a leftist RuneScape clan, and at the time I was not taking the game too seriously, but all of a sudden I had this community around the game, and then I was done. It was done. I'm in. Yeah.
So for you, the communal aspect was like major pull. You're like, damn, okay, this is a community I thought like this is literally my community.
It was my community. Not only
so
were they
like
like a community of just as a community, but they also were well, some of the people in the clan are like serious gamers too. And it was like there was a way to like get into like taking the game at another level because I was in this community.
Yeah. Right, Carson knows how I got into this again because it was Carson's fault. I don't think I ever would have played again unless Carson said, "Hey, did you hear it's back online?" And he was playing it, and we used to live together. And yeah, started playing it then. I don't think I played it for. I started like wanting to get the quest cape because similar reason. I was like, "Oh, these quests are so fun. I remember all these," and um, I owe it to my childhood self to finish every quest. Was kind of the thing that kept me going. And I did. Kind of alone with no community. And then, you know, I don't feel like I've been a self-described leftist for that long, but I was at least like a misinformed liberal with like anger that was undirected because I'm like, nothing's like really actually changing or happening.
Yeah.
And then, I got uh pulled into the Hasanabi industrial complex. And started getting radicalized through that. And after that, and I was like, oh, maybe there's a RuneScape community that like is similarly aligned. So I heard the Siren Song Reddit post from a Google search and found our little small corner of the world. And the rest is history.
so this is exactly I feel like we could spend another whole hour just discussing this stuff. But how did you two meet in game?
Just through the
'Cause,
group.
like,
Yeah, this clan we're in called Leftscape.
so I wanted to, for the listeners, me and Maddie were friends. Became connected back in something like 2020 or so.
Yeah,
Just
right after
in
George Floyd.
exactly in the uprising that followed that. I was back in Minneapolis for that time, and we connected doing leftist activism during that period. And then I moved back to LA once again. I was there for about 10 years. Came back for the pandemic. Went back to LA with my other friend, and is someone Danny is someone that I've known for a very long time in Los Angeles. And one time I was, and so I knew, so I knew Danny for quite a long time, and then I moved back to Minneapolis, and I was catching up with Maddie. I was at a coffee shop or something, and we were talking shit, catching up. She mentioned she was playing Baldur's Gate. I was like, oh my god, what character are you rolling, etc. And I knew that he played Leftscape. So I mentioned to Maddie, have you heard of, are you into RuneScape at all? She was like, yes, I totally am. Have you heard of Leftscape? And I was like, you should hit up my friend. And lo and behold, they were like, fuck. Dude, I keep fucking up the fucking names.
You're gonna have a great time editing this.
I know.
Yeah, good fun.
And Maddie was like, oh, we're best, hang out all the time on fucking Leftscape.
Yeah, we both mod the same clan.
Yeah.
Both mod the same clan on Leftscape. So can you two tell me how exactly did you start? How well did you know each other through Leftscape?
I mean, we are on the same we're on the same team. We're both on terminally online. I see
Yeah.
I see Danny on all the time. Danny sees me, and maybe important to note is that when you're in a clan in RuneScape, you get access to a thing called the clan chat. So there is the public chat where you interact with players in the world. There's also a clan chat. You just, whenever you type something, you just put 2 slashes in front of it, and it goes only to your clan. It's like a mass direct message with people in your clan. So I always see chatting in there. Danny, I always see Danny chatting in there. And I'm sure he always sees me chatting in there. So there's always communication there when one of us is online, whether passive or actively.
Yeah. And I always Maddie's one of the my I don't play favorites, but one of my more favorite people in the clan. So, always happy to see each other online. And just I've already relayed this to you, over clan chat and Discord, that I'm permanently inspired by the stuff you do outside of the game, and it's very cool. So yeah.
Thank you.
So what does it mean to you to have, I guess, what does it mean to be a leftist for both of you?
It means no jokes.
Yeah, no.
No houses, no
time.
Jokes.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, we will. So as a leftist, I want to take your guns. I want to take your meat. And I want to take your penis.
And I definitely don't want to see any pronouns. I do not want any pronouns.
Yeah, no pronouns. Yeah, that's about it. No, yeah, no. Okay. In all seriousness, I think a leftist is I kind of going off with Danny said, a jaded, enlightened liberal. It's the next stage, right? Were you all naive and think voting your way through is going to make change, and you realize no, both the Republicans and the Democrats, if you're in America and similar, I'm not as familiar with parties in the UK or other countries, but you realize that they both work in the same system, and you need more systemic change. You actually need to change the actual programming of the country, and leftists have a more broader material analysis of why things are the way they are, and provide more of a systemic change. They don't say that the cure to feminism is to put more women CEOs. No, true feminism is getting rid of CEOs. That the whole system of capitalist exchange is what oppresses women or oppresses trans people or oppresses people of color. It's deeper. It's another level higher than what simple identity politics are or simple like patchwork that liberals do.
If you follow the entanglements of the different identities that are subject to the most, critical violence and are in need of the most critical support, if you're looking at it based on identity, then once you entangle those and see how they're all intersectional, then you arrive at a more materialist analysis.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. You also just end up reading a lot of Lenin and Marx and Mao, and just to say you read the books. For no reason, other than say you read the books.
Yeah. Right.
I guess that was kind of my question is like, what does it actually mean to be a part of Leftscape? Like, is it something that people are just mostly talking about? I don't know, any of the stuff that we're talking about right now, or is it like, is there an actual structural level to like the clan where there is some experiments in like the socialization of like wealth, or
so the clan is just a clan. It just operates like any other clan, but it's a video game space, and I think anyone who's ever played video games know that there's still a toxic level of it, very, very white male dominated. And so to have a space where like people of any kind of leftist leaning, first of all, leftist leaning thought, but also a place where if you are half our clan is like trans women, to be honest, and like that's like totally like there is a place where you can just be that in RuneScape and still enjoy this game, and like I think it is our practice to make that space where you can enjoy this game and play this game with other people that like accept you, and we'll teach you how to raid, and I'm proud that we have that space, that we provide that space for people. Yeah. We'll teach you how to PK the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and other than that, there's not really like prereqs or anything. Like
No.
we're pretty much accept everybody who wants to join, even people who don't say that they're leftist out the gate. It's just that we treat them with a little bit more like care and consideration. But yeah, it's not like we give you a leftist certification quiz and then you either pass or fail.
Obviously, if you're like talk about how much you love cops and you want to vote for Trump, we're not going to let you in. But like,
yeah, because we consider that like violent rhetoric. So yeah, but it also serves as a space like the Discord and the clan chat is a place where we talk about leftist issues as well. There are kind of separate channels for that, and we commiserate and strategize about like, damn, this sucks. Like, sorry that this is happening in your corner of the world. Did you hear about this other crazy thing that happened in this corner of the world? And light discussion about what can we do about it. Because it's easy to get discouraged, and I think it's nice to have this community to kind of bounce ideas off each other in some ways.
Also, it's cool that our clan is there's people, obviously people in the US, but we have people in parts of Europe, we have people in Australia, some people in Canada. So like we get to see the more global perspective on these issues and see how like what other countries are kind of facing in terms of their politics. And I think I kind of like that like more global connection.
Absolutely. Maddie, I have a question that I would like to throw out there that I would, maybe we can get back to in a second for you about this idea of mutual aid and how it relates to online spaces, and especially when it comes to locality and the refracting of it that occurs online in online spaces. But before we do that, really quickly, Danny, I wanted to discuss with you the Hasanabi complex. This is another online space. How does it compare and contrast with your experiences in Leftscape?
Yeah. Let me really quick turn off this fan behind me. It's loud as hell. I'll be right
Oh,
back.
okay, sorry. I guess I put that in the wrong order. Maddie, do you have any
Yeah, you're
easy
asking about
responses
like
to that?
how mutual aid works in an online space, essentially.
Correct. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this is kind of a very personal example, but I a year ago was mugged. I got, my phone stolen, my keys. I got a lot of stuff taken from me. Part of it was my headphones, and um I didn't ask for this. I didn't expect this at all. But not only did my clan just like give me a lot of emotional support during this, they a few people in the clan bought me a new pair of headphones. They just like pooled funds. And that was crazy to see that people that I don't know in real life but have a really firm connection with in this online space where these people have these values. It meant so much to me. But I think I so I think there's this like antiquated idea of community or friendships or relationships that like think that it has to be like people you are in like personal like contact with every day. And I don't think that necessarily is true anymore. And so any idea of like mutual aid where we like put together our skills, our talents, our resources and help each other in need can extend to an internet forum. Why can't it? As long as you're being careful and not like, falling for scams or like, putting your information out to people you don't trust at all. I have enough trust with Leftgate where I don't feel like being open and vulnerable with them is a security risk in any way.
Yeah, I just wanted to inject a little bit of like post-structuralist, post-humanist theory into this, just to for the fans of that out there. Um, we live in simulated realities to begin with. Like our experience, it is true that embodiment is a big deal, but at the same time, all of our experiences are synthesized through different neurochemical relationships in our brains that actually simulate something. There's no one base reality that everything else references.
Yeah.
So in this, an online, like a person that you know through Leftscape, you spend enough time with them that you see them as like a little character with like different sets of armor and different like and like different like pixels animating who they are. But you get to know them also through syntactical understandings of exchanges of information, just like you do a normal any other friend. And so I just am trying to degrade this boundary between online and IRL relationships, because me and Carson knew each other in real life for a few years, but I think there's been more time that we haven't known each other in person than there has been times that we have known each other in person. But we're still, engaging in the same exchange of information, and I feel his presence when we do it.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of is worth sitting with that distinction and kind of degrading the binaries between those two different modes of community.
Yeah. 100%.
Also, when it comes to radical potentials of collectivity, I think that also applies almost even more so.
Well,
Um,
so if I could bring in my like another side of my life in the metal side, like I'm very active on like quote unquote metal Twitter. And I will see people like post up like GoFundMe's if they like need a surgery or something, and people are so willing to help because they know the presence of the person as as a Twitter account, but they still see a humanity in that. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept.
And I also have been seeing this a lot, and this is going to be a topic that I would love to explore more in further episodes.
Yeah.
But I've been seeing a lot of Palestinian content creators actually be able to sort of like navigate through social media, a reflection of their actual day-to-day lives. Like Wizard Basan is a classic example, and then there's another one who is like Omar Hers or something, who does this thing with his friend that's like every day they do it like a day 51 of like of my life in Warzone, where they just like describe their lives and they just take you along the different routes that they go on a daily basis. And just being able to see what someone lives in their daily life. There's another example of someone who like does cooking every so often. It's like a little cute girl doing like cooking, and like her limited resources, but like despite that, her like smile and her charisma, bleeds through the. I think that's been a big part of like why liberals have been a little bit radicalized by this moment right now, is that we see the ability to transmit empathy through virtual means.
And I think people realize, well, who's the president right now? It's the blue guy, and he's still, because of his position in the power structure that is the U.S., is still has to do these horrible things in the name of U.S. hegemony. And I think people are now, it's hard for people to be blinded to that. They're waking up to that.
Exactly. No, totally. I
Yeah.
think that Biden being president right now is a big deal, and I think that it's hopefully can get people to get to that step beyond the like disgruntled like liberal that Danny talked about. Danny, did you want to like sort of compare and contrast perhaps Leftscape and Hasanabi worlds?
Sure. Geez, let me think about how to do that even. Because in some ways, parts of it are very different. Hassan has a Discord as well, but it's so many more people, and so it's harder to kind of, unless you're in like a small sub channel, with your very niche group, you don't really get to know people. That's probably the biggest difference. I'm just a chatter in Hassan's Twitch stream, whereas in Leftscape, I'm an active member of, you know, the community. So, but I guess at the end of the day, like, we still talk about the same news cycle. We still talk about things that, yeah, I don't know. I guess just, I don't know how many people come and find our clan who don't already know a lot about stuff, but at least for me, I've felt like it's given me some direction when I first joined. Like, oh, I can check this out. I can check this out. I can check this out. Um, more so than I got maybe in Hassan's community, where I just became like reliant on Hassan.
Can you talk just briefly about just to highlight again, like what did it mean for you to find Hassan? Like what did it mean for you to find an online, like a virtual leftist space? And
Yeah. Yeah, it happened around like many other people that came into his community recently during the 2020 election. Um, and I just remember, I was a Twitch enjoyer for a long time, and I saw that someone had 200,000 people watching during the election cycle. I was like, what the heck? Like, is this guy gonna be on the wrong side of politics? I might as well check it out though. And just like everything he was saying, I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. That is the reason that like all these, as he puts it, legitimate grievances that you have about what's going on in the world get frequently co-opted and misplaced, whether you are on the liberal side or you're going down a right-wing rabbit hole. Um, Either way, nobody seemed to be talking about like actual solutions, what's actually going on in an honest and complete way. So it was like cathartic. I was just like, oh, finally, like this makes sense. And I need to learn more about this. Yeah. And then after that, you kind of can't really go back. Like I now whenever I talk to anybody else and then I like hear the things that I used to just kind of gloss over, like, yeah, you got to vote, voting really hard. That's what you do. Or, oh, well, it's a real shame, but what are cops supposed to do? They have to protect us and they get scared. I'd hear things and I was just like, before the programming was like, yeah, I guess that's fine, but like it feels wrong. Or like it feels like nothing's working. To where now it's like I almost don't even want to be a part of a space unless people are either open to it or already, on this kind of journey that I've begun on.
Well, so like you mentioned, I love that you brought up the cop thing because like I think a liberal response to like maybe hearing a leftist say defund or dismantle the police is like, well, we got to have some type of public safety. In fact, I'm like, we're not saying no, but we're just saying we need to completely change the whole entire economic system so where there's a force that protects private property doesn't need to exist because that thing they're protecting doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that these once you get introduced, it's like it's it's viral, just like so much community is viral these days. But once you understand it, once you get a little bit of it, it can kind of like the way that crystals form, in a solution. Once you get one structure in place, it's like, oh, this applies this way, this applies this way, and it all kind of makes more sense. And like one final point for me that I would like to land on. I feel like I'm always ending these episodes on a bit of a dour note, but is that this player interaction to me is vital, even if it's not supportive. I feel like having an interaction with somebody. I mean, in the World of Warcraft that I'm playing, oftentimes you'll just like party up with somebody just to like more easily clear a quest or whatever. But I also, my other addiction that's been way more long-standing is Magic the Gathering Arena, which is not the same experience of having a camaraderie with your friends in person playing the card game. I don't know these people, right? We can only communicate through like one of 5 emotes, like oops or good job or whatever. But yet having that interaction of either killing them or being killed by them feels vital to me. And I wonder if, Carson, you would be interested in maybe, do you feel that with the way that you were PK'd at that early stage? You had this original trauma of being fucked. And then you were like, you know what? I'm gonna fuck other people. Do you feel like that I don't think that it has to inform your real life connections, but do you think that that was something that you crave? This is me stirring the pot just a little bit at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard because, like, I think it did set me on this. Yeah. Like, in game, it set me on this path as a kid where I was. Yeah. I mean, it was like, okay, I do think that there is some enjoyment in, like, or maybe we should frame it this way. Like, there's an element in online spaces. Like, why was I drawn to like PKing, which stands for player killing, I guess we should say, like PvP, like person versus person. Like, what was it about that, as opposed to just, like, I don't know, goofing around and just doing whatever in the game, like, that like had this element of competitiveness of like you're actually in community in some sense with somebody that you're fighting, almost like like a boxing match or like something like that. And it requires like an intense amount of like motor skills. Like, I'm like, I was not even good at this, but like other people that, like YouTubers and like people that would like post like PKing vids on YouTube, like they were like so incredible how they could actually like navigate the game. But then, like there's other things that we haven't brought up at all, like what's the word, like modding, where you like you cheat basically, like you can like
Bots.
yeah, well, botting as well, but like actual like on a like a motor like physical level of like your, I don't know, the way that people would set up different like hotkeys and stuff while
Sure.
PKing, like things like that. And that like, but there was an element to this of like, oh, we are in a competition with each other in like a sporting way, and you trash talk. I mean, people like
hardcore trash talk during these moments, but also like there's some real camaraderie of like, hey, you're good at this, and like I see you. But also, what's funny with the difference, I guess, is that in real life, I'm still on this thing about like it's still addicting because it's like there's this gambling aspect of it, of like it's like when you're fighting somebody, you're still not in control of like what the actual like damage number that pops up is. It's still it's up to a random roll of some sort of cyber dice, and like so I don't know. I think what I got burnt out on, and like why I stopped playing, was like that thrill of like fighting people was lost in different like iterations, and also like a huge thing now when I started trying to play the game again. I also went back for like this nostalgic moment. This the big reunion tour where I played a ton of this game over pandemic time, basically just because I was ill and depressed, and it was the only thing that like allowed me to escape my shitty reality. So it was like, but the game now was so saturated, not just with bots, so not real people playing, but also like there was this really depressing, crazy geopolitical element to some things. I don't know, Maddie and Aiden, if you all can weigh in on this, but like I would be fighting people in the wilderness, and they'd start typing in Spanish or something, and they would say things that were like, and I know enough Spanish where it was like, holy shit, like what's going on here? Like, this is like a North American server, or like a US server, probably Eastern US server, like world, and but I would start like talking to people and find out that it's like there is a huge like presence of like people specifically from Venezuela that play this game in like I'm not exactly sure. This is like an interesting like cyber ethnography almost, but they're gold farming in like clans basically, where like in real life, it has a real life like impact for them. So it's like, oh damn, I started like talking to people, and like basically just like finding out like this is your job, like you do this to help like literally feed your family, and like I'm just some like annoying person like literally killing you for like kind of for fun. And it's like that, like a lot of all this was completely lost, where I was just like, this shit is stupid, like I don't care about this anymore. Like it doesn't have the same like this isn't for fun anymore. It's not like sporty. It's just like, oh, these are either bots or like Venezuelan gold farmers that you're fighting. And if you're not fighting one of those two types of like, characters, whatever, people in the game, then it's other people who are like also kind of like poaching bots, or poaching like it's weird. And a lot of people make content off of it also. Like there's YouTubers, that like I don't know, that it's a really strange interplay of like, also it brings up a lot of questions about like automation and like I guess forms of AI that kind of like make something feel like the game maybe felt more human before, when I was younger, and then now feels like this really like dystopic place that I think mirrors like a lot of whatever the neoliberal world like that is like. So I feel like there's this depression in game where I lost interest that mirrors like a depression in real life. That's kind of like this. And it feels like a bygone time of like, oh, I wanted to play this in order to like have this same like fun thrill of like when I was younger. But it's like, it's different. The world, the RuneScape world has changed, and the world that we live in has changed. So it's,
So I wanna touch on two things there. First of all, I wanted to explain like the wilderness, 'cause I think the way we've talked about it makes it feel like this like super toxic space. I uh I do think it's part of the game, and that like people go into the wilderness because there are There are very rewarding bosses in the wilderness. There are things you could skill on. There's reasons to go into the wilderness, and then there are people that want to hunt the people that do that. So it's kind of a risk reward kind of place to go into. I think that's actually a really interesting part of the game, and it's good that it exists. But to the gold farming thing, yes, I did hear about. I am familiar with like people that like you'll see bizarre accounts where like they're the only thing they do in the game is like have like 10,000 Callisto kills because that's all they don't care about the game. They care about getting that gold and then turning it into a gold market and making money, which I don't care. Do that. If that's what you need to do to survive, I have no problem with it. I think it's really weird that there is such um a negativity towards those people for game reasons. Like you mentioned, you feel guilty PKing them. It's like, well, what are your priorities? I don't if this is how they're gonna survive, then like my if it makes my game environment a little less pure, so be it. I don't know. That's my feeling towards those.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah.
Wildy is actually sick. I'm Wildy pilled now. Big
Yeah.
fan. But yeah, I think, get that money up, if that's what works. And actually same thing with bots, I don't even mind people who bot or the bots that exist because I often don't want to do the content that the bots are doing, and they keep the price low of the things that I want to use for the content I do want to do. And they make money on the side, and that's great. Happy for that.
The majority of the RuneScape community does not hold our opinions, but those are your leftist takes on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Those kind of span a lot of different potential post-human possibilities, actually. There's a cringe take of like Grimes who says like, oh, we just need to like, if only we could live in a world where like everyone just has to play video games to like make a living. Which is like, okay, why do we have to be making a living if we're like making up fucking fantasies? Like, why do we still have to be
Right.
shackled to? But at the same time, it's like, from our perspective right now, I've seen a lot of accounts, again, using Palestine as an easily referenceable example. I've seen several social media posts where people are like, please stop scrolling, hit every button, like, subscribe, save, share, just to help us, because things can get monetized if they're viral, right? So like you can get monetized and then you can get like enough money to afford some rice or whatever. But um but it's like it kind of does pose a pest because that's in real life. So like I think all these different things will be something that I would love to explore more, whether it's virtual community, automation, the new economies, time, all these different sort of like the question of muddying the purity of a certain form. These are things that I would love to continue to expand on in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want to, as a quick aside, I don't want to minimize your grief, Carson. It is still sad that like the Wildy isn't the same place that you remembered it.
Oh no, I literally don't care.
Okay.
I'm no, I was just saying like in the moment of like, I think it was more of like a realization of like, oh, this game is like, it's not so much like a corrupting like, oh, this is like some form of like computer like xenophobia or racism or something. It's like, oh, like the like friendly competition of this, or at least what used to feel like that, is like different now. And it's
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, I think that's maybe more what I was getting at, because then it's kind of like, I don't know, like what am I playing this for if this is like, but I realized that also what's cool also about this game is that it's a world where there are many things that you can do. And like it is interesting perhaps that like why was I drawn to the most like whatever intense toxic part of that game. And I feel like maybe it's like, I don't know, I was more of like a jock, and like the sporty aspect of it was like the thrill. Yeah, and I feel like maybe that's why
League of Legends blew up after that, was like it
Hmm.
basically is just PKing in like a clan war style all the time. Like that's all you're really doing.
That's what drew you to League of Legends, you think?
Well, I mean, same like League of Legends. Yeah, again, I don't even play any of these. I don't play any of these games anymore. But I played League of Legends a bit because my brothers also. It was a nostalgic thing for them of like always trying to get me to play, and I was never into it. But then when I actually tried it out, and it's like that, I don't know, the actual skill whatever involved, and I feel like people would say the same thing for like a lot of first person like shooter games or like like Fortnite, Rocket League, like all these things that feel like they're like the merging of the sport and gaming worlds. And I mean, some aspects of that I'm drawn to, but honestly, I'm gonna make. I feel like why people are drawn to that is like this somewhat of a desire for like community, but also like competition in a way that I don't think like, competition is inherently like capitalist or like inherently like problematic.
There'll be sports in a communist society.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's more just like, oh, um, like the alienation and the atomization of people and the breakdown of like, community and public space. Like instead of people having community teams where they do whatever, we're seeing kind of like a resurgence of that, at least where I live, with sort of like adult like wiffle ball and softball and pickleball and like I don't know, all these different things. But it's like if there isn't some sort of format of something like that, I feel like people are like creating that in games. And like I don't know if it's like any of this is like hitting for anybody, but or if this is all good or bad or anything. I'm not sure, but it's just a observation of like taking the competition that people would be playing out and also like the drama of it all. It's an interesting whole thing, like as like a creation of a new sphere where people like fight and argue and also like befriend people, and like all of this being exported into cyberspace. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, a social sandbox of sorts. We're just still playing in sandboxes, all these decades later.
Yeah, I mean, so far we've been sort of kind of trying to like create an ongoing, mutating manifesto as we create this project. So far we have shape change, jump in the pool. Um, is there anything we can glean from this conversation that the two of you, Maddie and Danny, would like to add or modulate with those two with that current phrase, that current manifesto?
What are we at it right now?
You got shape change, jump in the pool, or jump in the mutagenic pool. We could change a word, like the pool could be a sandbox, or something like that. I gotta start introducing this concept earlier in the episodes.
Yeah. Shapes change. Jump in the pool. The water's very deep.
Ah,
I like
so
that.
much to explore.
yeah. And I think do it with friends.
Hmm.
I like that. Shapes change, jump in the pool with friends.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense for this episode because we're jumping in the pool. We're not just jumping in the pool. Yes. We are
Alone.
doing so in the spirit of playfulness. It may have serious depth to it, but we're doing it in playfulness with friends. And friends you can find in many different places and in different many ways.
Yeah. I think, if you want to do collective action, you got to have a collective first.
And I think that a lot of us, like I spend the majority of my time that I have free online. So I think that online communities are very vital for this sort of thing. I don't want to, it's not like either or either, because I know all of you from real life and also virtual space. So, yeah. Any final thoughts as we wrap this up?
Play RuneScape. Jump in.
Okay, let's go. One more time, thank you, Carson, for joining us. Thank you, Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh. I highly recommend checking out her YouTube channel. Has a really cool sort of like review of the Death Con, like what was this most recent thing you just went to?
Oh, Maryland Death Fest. Yeah, it's a metal festival.
Yeah, it was a really fun review to watch, and I'm gonna be looking into what is it called? What is it called? Insect destruction or some shit?
Oh,
insect warfare.
Insect warfare?
Yeah.
That was a Patreon exclusive. Are you a Patreon subscriber?
No, but I just kind of Googled the thing.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know I don't know how you came across that, but
No, but great metal Rex, and definitely a fun channel to check out. Danny, thank you so much for joining us. Would you all like to share your RuneScape things at all, or is there any like if someone wants to get involved with Leftscape, how should they go about that?
So anyone can guest, and so it's just, is it one word or two words?
Two
Danny?
words.
Yeah, so if you type in
left.
Leftscape, and like there's a tab in like the clan area of the UI that you can just guest in a clan. Anyone can guest. Just guest. And our policy is, if you hang out for a few days and we think you're chill, one of the mods will meet you in game and get you officially added, and then a few days later we'll get you in the Discord. So yeah.
Oh, I guess the last thing, Jackie, you gotta or maybe Maddie and or we could all
Danny.
Danny and Maddie, we gotta all send like RuneScape music recs maybe to put in the audio of this, because that's another huge part of the game, is like there are tracks, so many tracks.
You gotta open with Scape main.
I'm definitely gonna be playing purely RuneScape music for this episode.
Hell yeah. And I know that there's actually I'd have to find it again, but I've heard good like remixes and stuff of a lot of like RuneScape music.
So a new boss that was added after old school RuneScape became a thing, and the old school RuneScape exclusive boss is Zulrah. But Zulrah, for this topic, is important because Zulrah's boss fight music just happens to be a total banger, to the point where there's like trap remixes of it that a lot of content users use. So that's one to check out if you want to use music for the show.
Yeah, it's called Coil.
Yeah, Coil.
I've written it down.
Excellent.
Sweet.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Please, give us a 5-star review on Spotify. Find us. We're on Spotify, Apple, and also YouTube right now. Let us know what kind of content you would like to participate in and what you would like to see. And thank you very much. Shape change. Jump in the mutagenic pool with friends.
Like a Camus novel.